Folks, thanks for joining us today. My name's John Dubas with Premier Marketing, and we'll be spending the next 50 to 60 minutes or so discussing why and how to you should sell dental, vision, and hearing plans. It's a very popular add-on for folks that have marketed in the Medicare space, and since we're still fairly close to AEP, there are a number of folks that are looking for such coverages that weren't included in the programs that they selected during that time period, or perhaps they don't have enough of that coverage, and so they are looking for additional coverage as well. Today's presentation is being recorded, and it, along with much of the material that we referenced through the course of the presentation, will be sent to all who have RSVP'd to today's presentation. If you would, look in the GoToWebinar software, and you'll find a section in there that says questions. As things pop up in your mind as we go through today, please put your questions in there. You'll find that many of them will be answered through the course of the presentation, but we will make certain that we address them, and if we're unable to answer them during the course of the presentation, we will include answers in our follow-up as well. To start, let's give a little bit of level set as to who Premier Marketing is. We're a national marketing organization founded in 1968. That's part of the Integrity Marketing Platform with offices across the country. We act as an insurance wholesaler working with independent insurance agents, and we offer contracts at the highest possible commission levels with recruiting contracts available to those who qualify. We work through a portfolio of insurance, a full insurance portfolio that includes the Medicare programs, the Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, and standalone Part D prescription drug plans. But we also offer life insurance and annuity products, final expense life insurance and pre-need plans, long and short-term care programs, disability income plans, and ancillary benefits such as today's presentation on dental, vision, hearing, but also critical illness, cancer, hospital indemnity, and accident plans. The Medicare Advantage portfolio includes all the national carriers and many of the strong regional carriers that make a difference to you in your target market. And that same philosophy carries over into the standalone Part D programs, where those products are available through our organization as well. The Medicare Supplement portfolio we offer is very strong and robust, and then we have different programs that help you market and be successful in that space as well. When we speak of the ancillary products, specifically the dental, vision, hearing programs that we'll discuss today in general, there's a number of the carriers there, the national leaders in the space, and we also offer the critical illness, hospital indemnity, and cancer plans as well, in addition to a new offering, the MD Live program, which is a telehealth program. You'll see in the dental, vision, hearing area a number of programs that you may already be contracted for through some of the contracts that they offer in the Medicare Supplement space, where those programs are there as part of that contract. Some of the other ones are separate contracts, so something to be aware of. When we look at the Medicare market overall, you come on programs like this, everyone speaks of the silver tsunami, the aging of the baby boomers, 10,000 people plus a day, one every 10 seconds. But if you look at it based just on age, you're a little off into the overall marketing of the Medicare programs, because some people will attain the age of 65 and go past it without accessing their benefits for one reason or another. But then there's about a sixth to a seventh of the Medicare market that's actually under 65 individuals who qualify for Medicare based on disability. These folks in this space are also very viable prospects for dental, vision, and hearing programs, since many of these go well below the age of 65, many starting at the age of 18, some even earlier than that. When we look at the population overall, it is a varied population with different health challenges that come with it, and we'll find through some of the details we give you in just a moment how some of those chronic conditions can actually be discovered through either a visit to the dentist or the ophthalmologist or optometrist or the audiologist in the three areas of specialty that we discussed today. And since many of those procedures can be very expensive, offering programs that help them budget and deal with the challenges that some of these folks have with their wallets and their savings, it can be very helpful for them and behooves us to have those products to offer as well, because they have choices. They don't have to do anything, obviously, but many of the folks recognize the need for help in the expenses and what they see as very commonly placed visits in the very near future in their lives. And so we want to make certain that we cover them regardless of their underlying medical coverage. They have a standardized, modernized Medicare supplement. Well, DVH programs generally are just discount programs if available at all. And folks that have just Medicare and a Part D, well, they're looking for some help in these areas additionally too. And then the Medicare Advantage programs, many of them do offer these types of programs, but a couple of things to consider. One, it may not be enough coverage in each of those areas. And two, if you have an optional coverage under a Medicare Advantage plan, well, you don't get paid for that coverage. And sometimes enrolling a person in a dental program under an aid program not only doesn't add to your revenue flow, it may be something that causes dissatisfaction with the program overall, and we most certainly do not want that. So when we look at why and how to sell dental, vision, and hearing programs, we want to look at, to begin with, one of the most commonly asked for programs, and that's the dental insurance. And when we look at this, we see that most people who are on Medicare itself do not have dental coverage, and many go without the needed care because of that. 2/3 of the population in the Medicare world doesn't have dental coverage, and half of them had Medicare Advantage in the last year. About a fifth of them spend more than $1,000 out of pocket on dental care, and 15% don't have natural teeth. I remember an appointment once where I discussed dental coverage with an individual. He reached in his mouth, took his dentures out, set them on the table, and he says, "There's my teeth. I don't need any help." Having my father go through about 14 different sets of pads into the dentures, I had a valid argument with that particular individual. There are a whole bunch of distinctions when we come to what is rhetoric and what is reality. When we realize that 76% of the seniors say they plan to visit the dentist within the next year, and you see that less than half of them actually do. So the discrepancy between that has to be served for one reason or another. And we'll see how that percentage varies according to the income. Higher the income, well, higher they do what they say they're going to do. Obviously, then it boils down to, as this slide illustrates, the biggest challenge why folks don't visit the dentist is the cost. And if we're able to help them budget for it and give good coverage, explaining what all goes into the programs, it can make a huge difference. Because if we look at the premium on a dental program and try to invest that money anywhere to get this sort of benefit, gee, unless you hit on Tesla or Google or something that blew up in the course of 1 year, it doesn't work that way. And then we see of that half of the Medicare beneficiaries that visit the dentist, you can see that sometimes when you get into the ethnicity, where we have a number of the folks that are African American have challenges with accessing care across the board, and we see it everywhere throughout this segment, that the lower incomes have bigger challenges in doing it, and so having a program like this can really be helpful to them. And we see that nearly 20% of the Medicare population spends more than $1,000. And we saw during this past AEP where a number of the Medicare Advantage carriers have really beefed up some of their dental coverage, and particularly in the Medicare arena if you're working with D-SNPs. But you'll see that this is a differentiator between some of the programs that come into play. The challenge is some of the plans that offer the higher dental benefits are also the folks that have some challenges with medical providers, not enough of them. And so that may be a differentiator that we come into when we look at, okay, these folks had to go into this program with a lesser dental benefit because it had their doctor. And so we need to look at making certain that we ask that additional question, prefaced by perhaps a generic scope of appointment. We'll talk about those in a moment. That can make a big difference to you. Because base Medicare only covers the base benefits. They don't cover what folks commonly perceive as dental coverage. Well, they don't. And this tells you then that that's a need that we need to address, because once again, 2/3 of the population on dental or on Medicare don't have dental coverage. So keep in mind, you've got about, well, a little more than 1/3 of the population in MA plans. Not all MA plans offer dental coverage. The vast majority do, but the folks, once again, that select a Medicare supplement or neither, they're self-insuring, well, they don't have the dental coverage that's needed there. And we want to make certain then that the folks that do have Medicare Advantage and help, well, that they have enough. So that just that extra question of when you go to the dentist, what's it going to cost you? Will these benefits be sufficient? So we look at this and perhaps have a family plan for you and your spouse and enhance the coverage that you have, and that can make a huge difference. Because even if a person is a dual beneficiary that has both Medicare and Medicaid, some of them don't have the coverage for dentists and the expenses that are incurred there, and many of them may have family members to help them with those expenses and with that premium in order to take care of the needs that they have for their dentistry. And we'll see also that certain states, well, the coverage is more prevalent in some than in others. And keep in mind that this is a slide from 2019. I couldn't find anything similar to this for 2021, but we'll see even with some of the enhancements that is, depending upon where you market, this can be a very viable differentiator for you in this area. Some of the things that we see as well, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, many of the folks that visit the dentist, that's where they discover some of the other challenges that they have with other medical needs. And we'll see that some folks visit the dentist and they don't go to the doctor. 27 million people. And so in these circumstances, it's the dentist that's helping discover some of these chronic illnesses. And we realize that when we look in this in certain segments broken out here, that with the dentistry, this is a huge area where oral cancer is detected, gum diseases are identified. We see some of the very common things that we see throughout our lives as we have teeth, where the joys of a cavity, or tooth loss, or halitosis, that old bad breath. These are some of the things that the dentist can use to help identify and see if perhaps that individual has diabetes, osteoporosis, or perhaps heart disease. When we get into the other sections with hearing and vision, we'll see too that hearing is the third most common health problem in the United States. And it can be linked to cognitive decline, brain tissue loss, depression, dementia. 28.8 million people out of this study could really benefit from using hearing aids. And when you look at vision, you'll see also that this is a very common exam that identifies diabetes, hypertension, and high cholesterol as well. And it helps us to know that when we go and visit with someone, what are some of the common costs for the services that they have done. This fairhealthconsumer.org website is very, very helpful. You can go to this site, punch in a zip code, and it'll tell you the common costs for dentists in your area in that zip code. And knowing these numbers with some very basic services that are delivered by the dentist, that $303, well, gee, that makes a $35 a month premium look pretty accommodating. And particularly when you factor in all the other coverages it has for what these things might reveal. It's also important to note that, remember the slide a little bit earlier where people turning 65 and aren't accessing their Medicare benefits? Well, these may be what is referred to in certain circles as a working aged. And these employee seniors, they intend to keep their dental and visit the dentist every year, 71% of them supposedly. So keep in mind, going back to the slide a few slides back, where rhetoric versus reality, many people intend to do things and don't necessarily get them done, but we saw the fall off from basically 3/4 of the population to about half, and we'll see that these folks want dental coverage. It's important for us then to make certain that we take some of these statistics and internalize them and be able to use them through the course of a presentation. As I laughingly say here, it doesn't have to be painful. And keep in mind, if you're not asking this question, someone else may well be, because one of the marketing things that you can do is call for dental coverage. It doesn't require the scope of appointment. It doesn't require anything but the butted up against do not call list. And if you don't ask it, someone else may be. I hate that line in many circumstances. If you're not doing it, someone else will. Well, this is a circumstance where that is very, very true. And you'll see in many circumstances, dentists will actually have material in their office about dental coverage. Boy, doesn't that ring a bell? Gee, we can do a little bit of on-the-street marketing if you think about it, and utilize the dentist office as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. And keep in mind that people perceive that the challenge of bad teeth really has a negative impact on their life. And that's pretty consistent across the board with the different ages. And I remember my father having purchased like 4 sets of dentures inside of 3 years, couldn't get them to fit. So commonly he wouldn't wear them very often. And you had that feeling where he would be uncomfortable with no teeth and hide part of his face. And that is a very, very disheartening thing to see, for one thing. But imagine what it is on the other end for the individual that is having that aspect of their life create such a negative impact as well. And some of the things that we can see as we transition into dental, from dental to vision coverage, we'll see that there are 7 stated here, according to this particular article that I accessed, health issues that can be discovered during an eye exam. Diabetes, and this is discovered through the leakage of blood vessels in the eye, hypertension, so high blood pressure, autoimmune disorders, could be a sign of lupus or another autoimmune disease, and high cholesterol. That same sort of thing that we see very commonly that lays out some of the same clues for diabetes, gives the optometrist or the ophthalmologist the data they need to refer that person to another specialist. It also is a way of identifying thyroid disease, Graves' disease. I have a sister that fights that, and it's one of the things that, remember Marty Feldman in Young Frankenstein with the bulging eyes? It's a thyroid disease that he was fighting that caused that. Cancer can be determined by this as well, can be cancer of the eye, and basal cell carcinomas can appear on the eyelid. And so this can actually even spread to the brain through the eye. And then, of course, different tumors can come into play where droopy eyelids or irregularly shaped pupils can possibly indicate a neck tumor or an aneurysm. So some different things that we see even through a routine eye exam that can be an identifier of different health issues. And then remember, much as where people may not go to the doctor every year and will go to the dentist, we see a similar sort of activity when it comes to a vision as well. Many people are very good about doing an annual exam for their eyes, and well, I'm in good health, I don't need to go to the doctor. That may be an ostrich theory, but that's another thing. And then one of the things that we see here too is vision care. Sometimes this is an area where the insurance companies don't put the same type of investment of dollars into this area as they do in the dental world. So even if it's Medicare or Medicaid, there may be a need for additional assistance in this area that we can see. It's also important for us to note that there are different things that come into play that lend to the value of hearing coverage. And these are identified by some of the varying coverages that are put into specifically MA programs or the discount programs on Med Subs, where there may not be as much invested here, or there may be an amount that is invested in hearing coverage that doesn't necessarily cover the cost of the hearing aid. And so additional coverage may be necessary to help with that, which can be a very expensive purchase. And one of the things that we see as well is there is such a thing as disabling hearing loss, and that increases as we age And when we look at those folks that are in the Medicare arena at, let's say, the initial 10 years of it, the initial decade, we have about 25% of them that are challenged by this. And this is something that we can see if we're doing a face-to-face or perhaps a Zoom interview with a prospect where they're cupping their ear or they're leaning in to hear you as you discuss the different components of the plan that you're offering. And it's a clear hint then that gives us an opportunity to bring up a DVH program and the assistance that they can get under the hearing benefit. Some of the things that you may not realize that come into play for someone who has hearing challenges. It can create social isolation, loneliness, and depression. One of the things that we see commonly mentioned, particularly now during the pandemic, is the isolationism and the depression that comes as part of this situation. And this sort of thing will, in many circumstances, even if there wasn't an isolation caused by the fact that someone is staying home, not doing as much socially, sometimes that comes into play for people that have hearing loss, and they'll do that regardless of whether or not there's a pandemic or not. And this can create additional problems for that individual. And we'll see also that many times hearing loss can come into play, that it can create cognitive impairment and dementia. Keep in mind, if you can't hear somebody, you're not having a really good time trying to communicate with that individual. And that can push people into even further depression and cause other illnesses, including dementia. The gentleman who is purporting these 5 different challenges caused by hearing coverage will point to a British study that found that untreated hearing loss tops the list of factors leading to dementia that are under a person's control. So making certain that we stay on top of the hearing challenges, it can make a big difference. I remember many years ago when I first started selling Medicare Advantage plans, I was married at the time, I went and had a visit to the audiologist so I could better explain the benefit from one of the carriers that we had. And after the testing, it found out that unlike my ex-wife's assertion that I could not hear, it tended to be selective hearing. Different animal. Hearing aids don't help with that. One of the things that we find as well is there's a study that was taken on that shows that people with a higher degree of hearing loss had a higher risk of falling. It's unclear as to the association, but we find that falls, that's one of the major causes of hospitalization, probably the 3rd highest of putting someone into a hospital. And so we want to make certain that we help people in this circumstance, because it's shown that when a person falls once, they're more readily susceptible to falling multiple times. And we all know what that can bring about for that individual. Broken bones, broken hips, those 2 things that can come into play. Some of the other things that it will do with hearing, we'll see that it may be a cause of or an indicator of diabetes and heart disease, because the blood flow to part of the earring the cochlea, can lead to hearing loss. And this can be a big challenge. And part of that is if we maintain and address the diabetes, we can help with the hearing loss as well. Because keep in mind, according to this study, 8.1 million people in the United States have diabetes, and it's undiagnosed. So that's one of the reasons why an audiologist may look at this, and because of the factors that come into play, they may also recommend that a person goes to a medical professional, an endocrinologist perhaps, or even their primary care physician to deal with diabetes. And we see also the hearing loss and low frequencies could indicate heart disease, even though the connection there can be a bit unclear as well. So there are different things that we can find through hearing coverage and addressing hearing loss that affects our overall health as well. So how does all this data we threw at you here for 20 plus minutes, how do we take and internalize that and actually produce sales because of it? Well, one of the first things we need to do is look at where did that individual we're speaking with come from? If they're from our book of business, they may have already received from us that generic scope of appointment that most commonly lists dental, vision, and hearing products. This gives us an opportunity that if it is the initial visit with the individual and we're putting a scope in play, that opens the discussion for these other products as well. And so that gives us an avenue to speak to the need for coverage in this area. It is also something that if you use this scope in AEP or an initial appointment since then and didn't discuss dental, vision, and hearing programs, it gives us an opportunity to follow back up with our enrollees or the folks that didn't buy from us and speak to them about dental, vision, and hearing products. You have a door opener here through the use of the scope of appointment. And then there are many people that will utilize the Medicare Bible in a manner of speaking. I'm not looking to be sacrilegious here, but the Medicare and You booklet that everybody on Medicare receives each October, it has a page in it that speaks to what's not covered. The infamous page 49, and it goes through and it speaks to the fact that dental, vision, and hearing programs are generally not covered by traditional Medicare. And even if a person does take the additional coverages, be they Medicare Advantage or Medicare Supplement, they may not have the coverage or enough of the coverage as well, and utilizing that same Medicare and You book and that page 49 can make a big difference. It's also a great way for you to have your prospect or client that you're visiting with pull out the coverages that they have so you can see what they have, make a valid comparison for those, and speak to the validity of the need for a dental, vision, and hearing program. It's also important to note that many of these programs, if you investigate the premium that is offered at age 64 versus 65, there's a pretty good sized jump between that year. Nothing that would put anyone in bankruptcy, but most of us, well, even if you have a gob of money, doesn't mean you want to spend it on dental, vision, and hearing coverage. So folks that are looking for that turning 65 coverage, in many cases, if you are cold calling for Medicare supplement programs, you'll find that many of them may have purchased early or are in the process of deciding, and you speaking to the entire bundle may also give you that differentiating factor that has these folks say, hey, this guy's looking at my whole coverage, bundle of coverage, and he's looking to help me. Or it may well be also someone who is looking for a gal that is offering them a variety of programs as an entire benefit package, something that they've become accustomed to while they were working. So targeting a slightly younger demographic can be a big difference for these folks. And it may be a way for you to get into more households based just on dental. It may be your way of creating that person as a client, so as they become eligible for Medicare at age 65, if that's the circumstance, you've got them in your book of business and you can smile and dial. So it makes a great way for you to add to your overall book. And since this is also a program that goes well below the age of traditional Medicare beneficiaries at 65, you have enlarged or basically expanded the number of people that you can speak to. My parents, Dad was 7 years older than my mom. So as he came on Medicare many years ago, Mom was a different animal in a manner of speaking in more than one way. But it gave us an opportunity to speak to the need of that coverage for perhaps the entire household. So that can be a way for you to expand the number of prospects that you're visiting with as well. And the magic question for dental coverage is basically asking, who do you see as a dentist? Who do you have your dental coverage with? So none of it is brain surgery when it comes to the asking of this part, or you may even haul into the old Columbo close, where you've completed the basic presentation, be it live or virtual. And that last question, oh, by the way, who do you have your dental coverage with? So it's a simple question of asking it, be it part of the presentation or a little bit later, and you are as persistent as Pepe Le Pew in his pursuit of Penelope and asking, can I get kissed? Well, you don't in most cases if you don't ask. How many times do you run an appointment and say, oh, by the way, I need me some of that dental coverage? They may not think of it either. They're preoccupied with the basic medical. You can also use these in your agency newsletter. If that is something that you're doing now to regularly communicate with your book of business or your prospects, this is a great way for you to do something very simple and just ask that question as part of your newsletter. And there are carriers also that make available to you microsites where a person can go shop on their own and enroll off that microsite. And since it is dedicated to you, that particular website, you're getting credit for that sale. So you may be picking up sales just by including that question in your newsletter or your discussions with these people, and then them pursuing that and identifying the coverages that they need or can afford and enroll. So something that can be very helpful to you. If you're not doing an agency newsletter, it's something we strongly recommend that you do, because it doesn't matter what you're pouring on top of the bucket. If there's a hole in the bottom, hey, you're not going to hold much water. We want to make certain that you're able to retain what you've enrolled as well. And one of the tools that we have in our Medicare Center program, the CSG site, also has in it the different dental coverages. So it's a great way that if you're in there with an individual and you're quoting them Medicare Supplements, you can pop into some of these ancillary coverages, the hospital indemnity and the dental coverage, and use that during the initial presentation. In these entire segments here, obviously the final expense is not something that you can sell on that initial MA or PDP appointment. You could on a Med Sup, or if you're doing a dental or hospital indemnity program on a standalone basis, that's something to consider there as well. There are also different carrier support systems that can be there for you. This is from our friends at Emeritus, and they have a proprietary electronic smart app that can help you in this area as well. And they are one of the carriers that offer you, as a contracted agent with them, that microsite that's dedicated to you and your business. So it's an enrollment and investigative tool that you make available to your prospects and clients. And that same thing rolls over when we look at some of the different ways that you can use that to quote as well. And it gives them then specifics on the program and ways of which they can determine what coverage they want, what they can afford, and how they can quickly enroll. So using those microsites can be a great value for you. And if you have your own personal website, or if you don't, consider putting one into play. It is also something that you can link on that site and have that same sort of advantage. We're driving people to your personal website. You have these microsites linked on your site. For dental coverage, go here. A great way for you to offer the program a greater extent and without getting a little ticky-tacky here, at a minimum of effort. So a great way for you to pick up additional revenue and coverage for your prospects and clients through your website. There's also, of course, the ways that you can go into the different systems and cross-sell off of Medicare Advantage or Medicare Supplement programs. The CSG program has a great way for you to do this for HIP programs, but going in, and if you're doing a Zoom meeting with someone, or if you're in the house and you got your laptop or your iPad or whatever in front of you, sharing this information as you go and using it as a quote tool can make a great way of solidifying that business and the opportunities that you have. Cross-selling seems to be the big buzzword in our life right about now. Marketing organizations spoke to you about that going into AEP. And now again, okay, you've got your other business in play. let's go and cross-sell. Well, one of the things that this does, of course, for you is help build that strong client relationship to make it less likely that someone will leave you. But as you go in and you offer additional programs in the house, it will drive up your persistency and retention of all the programs in that household. And the neat thing about this is, it differentiates you from your competitors, but it drives up that retention. So you can see that the odds of someone leaving you with the more products that you have in the house grows smaller and smaller. It makes you look different than every other person out there, that you're looking at the whole picture and not just different segments of it. And as agents, it's a great source of additional income. One sale a week at a base commission level, that's over $10,000 a year, $13,500 annually in this example. And it's for coverage that your prospects and clients need. So when we look at the different carriers that we have available, AARP is rolling out a program for their dental coverage. That's part of their Med Sup contract. And you'll see some of the other major carriers doing some of the same things or have already done some of the same things. And then different carriers that also specialize in that area. So we see some of the big name programs that are out there: Aetna, Anthem, Humana, Mutual of Omaha. These are name carriers that we see all the time, and many of us have had long experiences with them. And in most cases, these programs are part of the contract that you may already have in play for their Medicare supplement programs. And then you look at some of the other carriers in this space: Ameritas, SureBridge, UCT, United National Life. These are programs that may not be as familiar to other people, but they offer very competitive dental programs, dental vision hearing programs in many circumstances. And then, of course, the carriers such as Medico, which has a very strong Medicare supplement portfolio in a number of states, has a very, very strong DVH program as well. And so we have a number of programs that you may already have a contract for and just haven't become aware of or utilized the entire breadth of their portfolio. And you may not want to put all your eggs in one basket, because there are folks that may be looking for major services as quickly as possible, or looking for coverages based on price only. And so knowing some of the differences between them, or utilizing the quote engine that is part of Medicare Center under the CSG program, can help you differentiate between these benefits and the fine points of what is being offered by those particular carriers. So we want to make certain that we're being flexible yet consistent. So we got to give ourselves time as we get into these programs. But we got to realize is that famous quote from Mike Tyson: everybody's got plans until they get hit. Well, knowing how to react to someone who says, no, I don't want any of that, like, okay, a follow-up question or two can be very simple, or then give us then another product to speak of in our newsletter or in our follow-up calls with these folks the next quarter, or the next half year, or whatever, as we go into the next open enrollment period, and how we can make that helpful. Because we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. One size doesn't fit all. And if we're incorporating multiple programs into a personalized marketing program, this can create a very comprehensive plan that gives us advantages throughout the year. There are a lot of people I see on different Facebook Medicare chat rooms that speak of the big checks they've got rolling in here in January. And a lot of times as agents, we see that, we're a little fat and happy here. Here, we're going to lay off for a little bit. Then you got to get it all wound up again and ready to go. If we have a plan in place, if we plan for it, and we had a webinar on that lately, we'll put a link to that in the follow-up. We want to make certain that we stay as consistent as possible, and keep in mind that over 60% of the Medicare business is written outside of AEP, even though that's a very hectic time. So once again, why are we doing it? Helps us retain our clients. It differentiates us from the other folks on the street, a great source of additional income, and our prospects and clients, they need the coverage. It's a question of, are they aware of what's available to them and how it can help them across the board? If we are in a situation like we are now, but gee, in a couple of months, it's been a year of social isolationism, a time period where many people were very successful in switching from in-person meetings to virtual meetings. This may proceed, or this may be the standard par for the course over the next few months, and we don't know about it yet, but we got to be prepared to pivot. And this is not just for one-on-one meetings, because we don't want to abandon our contacts in the community, in our target market, and utilizing a scheduling of in-person meetings that, if present circumstances continue, how easily can we pivot to virtual meetings? And we can, very simply, because there are a number of folks that are in our target market that are being trained by a number of outside sources to go virtual from that in-person meeting. And we see that seniors are becoming increasingly digitally savvy, and there are a number of reasons for it. If any of you tried to have a doctor's appointment in this last year, how generally was that handled? I have a number of health issues. I have more doctors and caregivers and providers than I would ever care to really confess to, but the vast majority of the visits that I've had with a doctor over the last 9 months, year, have been virtual, telehealth visits. And so we have folks that are being trained by their providers of care to become electronically savvy. There are certain segments of the market, obviously, that may not have access to the tools or the support that makes this possible, but a good percentage of them do. And in many cases, we see that, okay, the providers are doing this. Their faith-based communities are doing this. They're having services online. So you'll look at different centers of influence in the community, and they're helping drive up the electronically savviness of our target market. So when we look at who we can talk to, well, cold calls. I wince at this sometimes because sometimes folks will cold call in the Medicare space, and they sometimes neglect to do what they need to do in order to remain compliant. Because remember, you can't cold call for MA or PDP programs, but you sure can for Med Sup. Gee, you sure can for final expense, or hey, you could even cold call for dental programs. So it's a great way of doing what we need to do to get in front of people, if it's in person or virtually. And then, of course, we have all the community-based marketing that I referred to just a little bit ago, a little vaguely, when it comes to some of the centers of influence in the community. For folks that have been active in retail marketing, well, those folks, if they've been in a retail situation, if they worked at Walmart, or if they worked a store for a carrier that is outside of that regime, so to speak, you need to stay in contact with those providers there, those pharmacists, all the year round. Otherwise, you've invested a lot of yourself, time and money into a limited time of the year, and then forgo it for the rest of the year when you've established a relationship with those folks. Having them know that they can send people to you and you can do things virtually for them, boy, it takes a whole load off of that pharmacist or that staff of that particular pharmacy. Faith-based venues, we've already discussed to a degree the fact that a lot of the services have been done virtually. And so you're offering programs to them in that area of marketing through faith-based organizations with the different presentations that are available. Got a webinar on that too. We can get you details. It's a great way to reach out to people there. And doing a simple extra help program, how they can do low-income subsidy for their medications, or do you qualify for a Medicare savings program, or rotate in a number of different topics in that area, can really get you in front of a number of people at once. As that same situation can happen with providers. Because remember, many of the doctors and specialists have trained their folks that, hey, we're going to do this virtually. You even see some influence now into telehealth for dentistry. And so there are different things that we can come into play to help in that regard too. Centers of influence, the senior centers, the nutrition site, some of the different things like that. There may be people that are accessing them live, but they're looking to limit that exposure. So having this done virtually can be helpful too. And many of the carriers are coming out with programs that are just wonderful. Ways to address things on a social media basis, but also the electronic tools to visit with the folks and enroll them through programs specific to that particular carrier. And then, of course, we talked about social media or referenced it so many times already. This is a great way of perhaps putting in your link to some of these dental programs or a general gathering of prospects through the media, particularly Facebook more than some of the other programs when we speak of our target market. A great way for us to take care of these people and work as well. Then, of course, there's the old dependable direct mail. Many of the direct mail vendors are now incorporating in a multitude of other programs, including access through Q codes and social media, those sorts of things that can really help you sell face-to-face or virtually as well. And then there's the old dependable referral process, and we'll talk about that in just a second. When we look at the cold call list, we have ways of getting you lists that are butted up against the do not call list that are available to you at a minimal cost, no cost, depending upon your contracting situation with this. Butted up against do not call. Keep in mind that many people are being called by multiple folks because they may be getting a push out by multiple vendors. And keep in mind that not all programs, as we mentioned before, allow for cold calling. Retail, we've talked about how you can access dental through this. It's something that you generally don't discuss on site because it doesn't affect the bottom line of the pharmacy that you're working with, but it's a great way to gather that information for additional follow-up presentations down the road. And then, of course, the provider marketing, where they're training the folks to virtually access care. They're going to virtually access information as well. Those provider partners, of course, we talked about the contracted and non-contracted doctors. No, we didn't. We didn't talk about non-contracted. Keep in mind there are doctors out there that aren't part of a network. They may need your help in the same fashion as docs that are part of a network for an MA carrier. Dentist, big play. You'll see that many of the carriers that are invested heavily in the dual special needs programs actually have programs that target dentists. And they have material set up for you to use to help approach these people. And keep in mind that as you go out and you speak to dentists about D-SNP programs, not all their clients are dualies, so it broadens the scale for you there as well. And you have the other key providers of care in the area of home health care givers and the durable medical equipment providers that can be of help to you in the area too. When you go to look for folks that you can talk to for churches, there's churchangel.com that can help you identify people in your target market. We have a piece on this in our faith base, so I'm going to roll past it. And keep in mind that this is a time period where some of the carriers that you've contracted with may have Lazarus leads for you, age leads that we might call in another segment, or additional folks that come into play that are part of their dual special needs programs, their D-SNP marketing campaigns. These are part of an illustration of what is a symbiotic relationship, because if you work with them and they know you're dependable and you know you follow up with reporting and selling, they're going to work with you. When we look at social media leads, we do have a Facebook program that helps get you in front of folks for final expense and Medicare as well. Get you details on that if you like. And then direct mail. We had a webinar on that this past week featuring lead concepts. And this is a program that can work on its own or can be used as support for any of the other segments of your marketing program as well. We do help with the cost of mailings based on production, where it'll take the cost down under half of what you would pay otherwise, or on a lesser production level, still deeply discount that cost. And keep in mind, direct mail is kind of like your exercise program. That may be one of those New Year's resolutions you've already broken 2.5 weeks into the year. But keep in mind, if you mail consistently, that's where you're going to see some of the results. And utilizing the support program can make that possible. Just keep in mind, if you exercise once, you mostly feel the pain. You don't see the results. If you do it consistently, that's where you come into play, and it can help you. We do vet and have a number of preferred lead vendors, and we do this to protect you as well in order to make certain that the mailings go out are on a compliant basis. It is a catalog of different mailers in that space then that can help you make certain that you are maximizing your return on your investment, but doing so compliantly. We do also have a couple of programs that enable you to purchase the responses off of different mail programs. These are sometimes easier to budget, but keep in mind these also may be programs where, gee, if you set up your own mail campaign, you're going to get those returns the same day they come in. These programs may not be as fresh. So you got a couple of different ways to go in there for direct mail, for Medicare, and final expense in most circumstances. And when we talk about referrals, we blew by that a little earlier. Keep in mind, this is something you ask for when you prospect, when you sell, and when you follow up. Some of my greatest success in dealing with referrals is as I was setting an appointment with a person, either for, well, in those days, we didn't have to worry about virtual meetings, but I would ask that person that, hey, if you have people you're comfortable with that need help in this area as well or would like to learn more about these programs, have them with you when we visit. You can fill out a scope of appointment for all the people that are in play in that house or that apartment or whatever, and proceed on with the presentation after you've got that signed scope. So it's a great way of doing it up front. And as you're selling, you can go through and as you're illustrating different benefits, it's like, hey, can you think of family and friends that need this same sort of assistance? And then as you go through and you do your thank yous for folks that have enrolled or different follow-ups in the 30, 60, 90-day programs that many of the carriers lay out there for you, it's a great opportunity for you asking for follow-up there and referrals. I never gave out just one business card when I did a face-to-face appointment. I did a minimum of 3 or 5. One for you, for your refrigerator or your wallet. Others to give your family and friends that may be in need of my services as well. We're getting close to the top of the hour here, so I'm going to go much faster. Sorry, I'm trying to go through this and get as much information to you as quickly as possible. Some of the other things you get from us at Premier, since many of these programs you might want to contract with more than one, set up an agent profile insurance pay and contract electronically. It speeds the process. Much as where we see with submitting applications, why they want you to do e-apps, outside of the fact that it speeds the flow, they don't have to read our nasty chicken handwriting. Some of the same things come to play in the contracting process, and we want to make certain that you have a repository for your E&O coverage, for the answers to the questions that are commonly asked during the contracting process. Those different things that come into play that can be very much simplified through an electronic contracting process. And I don't know of any company now that doesn't require you, there may be one or two, that don't require you to have errors and omissions coverage. We offer a discounted E&O program to qualified agents. What makes you a qualified agent? You got a contract with us, or you're getting one. It's a way for you to own that E&O policy. So it's not like being added to a blanket E&O for just one program, and you have to worry about the rest. This is something that you own and is available to anybody you contract with through any hierarchy. So a great advantage there for you. We also offer a way for you to keep your license in effect, and that is through bundled continuing education programs through our association with WebCE. And we have a means for you to increase your own benefit package as well through a modified guarantee issue disability program that you are paid a commission upon as well. so you can add to your own benefit package through this program. Much as where today's presentation is being recorded and will be sent to you as follow-up, we will also post it on our website at premiersmi.com and on our YouTube channel. The past presentations that are out there that we've recorded as well give you a library of presentations that speak to categories such as what we're discussing today with PVH, or carrier-specific programs, or other marketing programs and techniques that can help you further your insurance career. Then, of course, the wonderful program that we have for electronic access, a singular sign-on for 3 different quoting engines that includes a CRM available to you without cost as a contracted agent with our organization through Medicare Center. A great way for you to become adept at electronic comparison and an electronic enrollment. Many of these programs that we discussed today in dental, vision, hearing area, well, these are areas that the compensation package is not mandated like Medicare Advantage and PDP programs are, so it will offer different incentives and trips. You'll see that a lot right now with different Med Sup programs as well, and sometimes tracking where all these programs are available and with whom. Well, we've got a spot on our website that helps you do that, and it also helps you qualify for our producers convention as well, which this past year was translated off of a cruise into cash. And that's something I think very few of us would like to decline. We'll take cash. All this said and done, we talk about all these different ways of using a portfolio of products to cross-sell, that buzzword. But it is a great way for you to increase your income, increase the number of people that you can see, drive up your persistency and your retention rates, and it's because we want to do business with you, and we're asking to do business with you. I think these programs are a very simple way of following up with all the folks that you worked with during AEP. Notice I said you worked with, not you sold, because you can offer these programs to people that didn't buy the base medical from you as well. So keep that in mind, that if you've gone out there on a Medicare appointment and you've got that scope of appointment and you've saved it in one program or means or another, which remember, you're supposed to keep them for 10 years if you sell them or not, a great way for you to go back and ask for their business as well. So if this is something that you want to make part of your personal marketing plan, watch for the communications that come through, but in the meantime, commit to yourself and make certain that you put it in play and you don't procrastinate. I'm a big John Wayne movie fan, and I love the movie The Cowboys, and there's always that phrase in there that says, hey, we're burning daylight. That's what we're doing here. Put this in play as part of your marketing program. Adjust that marketing plan you may already have in play to include this and move on it, because we're going to talk to you about these programs and see how we can incorporate them into your overall strategy and make it work for you. So you can reach any of us at Premier at 1-800-365-8208 or through our website at premiersmi.com. I'm going to talk about, check on the questions that have come through. One of them says, I have noticed that many dentists will not accept dental HMO programs, especially if it's a Medicare HMO dental plan. Any thoughts on this matter? That's true. Sometimes you get into a Medicare Advantage or a D-SNP program, sometimes the networks will be a little less than sterling, and so you have to look at different alternatives there. Keep in mind, these are fee-for-service programs that we're discussing today, so they are not discounted programs from a dentist being part of a network. They layer on any other type of coverage that they have, or if they don't have coverage, they have some now. And one of the things that you see in the dental world is a challenge with their accounts receivable. If you go and discuss these programs with dentists that are on out in the real world that aren't part of any of these programs, keep in mind that it's a way for them to drive up their monies that they're bringing in, and they're having part of it subsidized through a program that is fee-for-service, pays regardless, and pays a certain amount. So the dentists in this area, they really like it. So it's a little bit different than what you'll see on a network type based program. Who pays first in Dental Advantage or a standalone dental plan, and how do they coordinate? Well, they don't coordinate. These programs are fee for service, as I mentioned before, so they pay in addition to any other coverage that comes into play. There are dental programs that if you use a network, Carrington Network is big out there, the initial program would pay, and this would pay on top of it. So it is a great way for you to add to different coverages. I think that's the only two questions that we missed. We're right at the top of the hour. So at this particular point in time, I'm going to thank you for the time that you spent with us today. We realize your time is your most valuable commodity, and we appreciate the investment of part of that with us here today. If you have contracted with Premier in the past and have done business with us, I thank you for that business as well. We appreciate it a great deal. And watch for the follow-up that will come to you. I've gone from a lot of attachments to links embedded in the follow-up, and so we don't see as much of the follow-up being pushed in the spam filters. But if there's an attachment or two, and since we do it blind copied, that's the possibility. So watch for your spam, watch your spam filters for some follow-up necessarily. We don't see a whole bunch of that, but I want to make certain that you know where to find it. And always, there's that number, 1-800-365-8208. Work with your Premier marketer. If you don't have one, we'll get one set up for you really quickly. And until we are able to visit again, I wish you good selling. Thanks so very much, and we're going to talk to you very soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.